What's happening, friends? It's another episode of Coffee and Kernels. Welcome back to another great week. This is episode 23, if my count is correct. Let's see. Well, this week we're going to get into a shorter episode. We're going to do our weekly recap per usual. Then we're going to get into some box office results. We're going to talk a little bit about Grand Theft Auto, the Definitive Edition. We're also going to be talking about a new fun product that's going to be coming from IGN, all about games. It combines Spotify and Rotten Tomatoes. Really cool. I'll give you my random thought of the week, and then we'll close it out with your recommendations. First, starting off with the weekly recap. So I went ahead and saw Ron's Gone Wrong yesterday, and I put out a review for it. This movie actually really surprised me. It's actually one of my top 5 favorite movies of the year, I think. And it's possible that 2 of my top 5s could be animated this year because Mitchell's vs. Machines is also in there as of right now with only about a month and a half left to go. So go see Ron's Gone Wrong if you haven't yet, or check out the review on the channel if you're undecided about going and seeing it. It's really good, guys. I recommend. Also, I ended up finishing and reviewing Psychonauts 2 earlier this week, which has been a very long time coming now. I have gotten into this habit, as I've talked about in previous episodes, where I'll play a game, I'll start it, I'll get a good chunk through, then I'll get distracted by another game. And in this case, Psychonauts 2 got distracted with it between Gears of War, Judgment, and also Far Cry 6. But I finally made my way back. I reviewed it. Check out the review on the channel if you're interested. It's amazing. It's so good. And then lastly, I think I'm going to queue up Far Cry 6 for my next video game review, because now that I have finished Psychonauts 2, I got back to Far Cry 6. I'm getting more toward the end of Far Cry 6 at this point, and am getting closer and closer to the end finally. I've put in a lot of time into Far Cry 6. I'm getting close to 3 days time now, which is just absolutely insane, so keep your eye open for that. Now, next up, we'll get into the box office results for this will be last weekend, so specifically making sure I got the dates right. The weekend of the 5th through the 7th of November. So coming in at number 1, no surprise here, Eternals debuts at about 71.1 million, which it's a Marvel movie. Of course, it was going to open as the top box office getter for that weekend. The one really interesting thing I thought about that number is the fact that it was actually the lowest domestic box office winner out of the 3 Marvel movies that have been released this year, between Black Widow, which made closer to 80 million, and then also Shang-Chi, which just barely made a little bit more than Eternals. I believe Shang-Chi made 71.4 million, and in this case, Eternals made 71.3. And then if you're curious, subsequently, Black Widow made 80 million. So this was Marvel's worst opening box office weekend this year. However, it wasn't really by much. And having said that, $71.3 million is still a lot of money in the grander scheme of things. It's just for a Marvel movie, that's a lot lower than what you typically see. Plus, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so I'm not surprised that that number came out about there. So 71 million, it's about what I was expecting. No big surprise there. Debuts at number 1. I'm anticipating that it could actually have potential to stay number 1 after this weekend, which is going to be the 12th through the 14th weekend. So the main reason being is that there's no other big opening box offices this particular weekend, which is kind of strange. So this is a quieter week than we've had in like the last previous 6 weeks. So really interesting to see where it'll end up. Then coming in at number 2, which is Dune. Dune dropped by 1 spot to number 2. Dune maintained its lead from last weekend. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. Dune did not maintain its lead. I'm trying to remember what it came in at last weekend. It came in at 3rd last weekend behind Halloween Kills. So actually, Dune ended up jumping a spot in the box office this weekend to number 2. It made 7.79 million. I guess I'm not too surprised, because like I said, with Halloween Kills and My Hero Academia dropping off in the top 5 like a box of rocks, it actually leaves room for movies like Dune to move up a little bit. Plus, Dune is a really good movie, and people have, by and large, really enjoyed it, so I'm not surprised it stayed in the top 5. Plus, when you combine it with not really a whole lot of other movies opening aside from, or big movies opening aside from Eternals, no surprise that jumped up to number 2 in this case. And then that brings me to number 3, which is shocking to me, because this has been like 5 weeks in a row now where it's resided in the top 3, and that's No Time to Die. No Time to Die actually jumped up a spot from 4, or I'm sorry, it didn't jump up a spot. It remains at the 3rd spot for, I believe, the 4th or 5th weekend in a row. So it's been in the top 3 every weekend since it's opened. It made 6.04 million million. I don't have my contacts in. It's really hard to see my computer from here. But anyways, made $6.404 million, which I guess I'm not really too surprised that a IP, which is intellectual property, like No Time to Die, has remained in the top three for so long. Especially given the fact that with the Bond franchise, it typically does make a lot of money, but it mainly makes a lot of its money overseas. So I guess the fact that it's managed to stay in the top three for the US domestically is a little surprising. It's a little surprising to me because I would have expected Bond by now to just kind of sort of drop off, especially since the film hasn't been. Well, actually, I'm gonna rephrase that. It has been quite popular, so maybe that's a big reason why it stayed in the top three. So good on No Time to Die for that. Moving into number four, which is Venom 2 or Venom Let There Be Carnage. Venom Let There Be Carnage actually jumped up a spot to number four. It was in the top. It was in the fifth spot last weekend. My Hero Academia and Halloween Kills ended up dropping off like rocks. My Hero Academia in the U.S. didn't even crack top 10 for that week, and Halloween Kills dropped from like 8 something million down to like 2.33 million. So it went to like number 8, leaving room for Venom 2 to climb. I am very impressed with Venom 2's ability to be longevitous in the world of the pandemic, and especially with all these great movies coming out. Venom Let There Be Carnage has been out for 6 weeks. When movies are out for that long, it is very atypical for them to stay in the top five in terms of box office. Venom 2 specifically made $4.47 million and jumped up to number four. I don't know what it is with these Venom movies, but Venom 1 made nearly $1 billion in the box office when it came out, and now Venom 2 in the middle of a pandemic has made about 200 million, which has been one of the strongest performances of film box office in the pandemic era. So take that for what you will. But yeah, I don't know what it is about the Venom movies. Their critics' ratings aren't, or their critics' score on Rotten Tomatoes isn't exactly high. The audience score is pretty high, which will probably explain why it makes so much money. Because a lot of audiences, these Venom movies just end up, what do you call it? A lot of these audiences just end up, the movie just registers for them. It works for them, and a lot of people go out and see it. And it's entertaining. I don't blame them. I really enjoyed Venom. I can tell you that much. So I'm really curious to see what Venom will do after this weekend. My guess is that it'll drop to number 5, and that No Time to Die will drop to number 4. But it'll depend because there's no other big box office openings this weekend, so we'll have to see. And coming in at number 5, which I think is the most interesting result of the weekend, is Ron's Gone Wrong. Ron's Gone Wrong ended up debuting, cracking the top 5, and it's the only original to do so, which I am super pumped for. It went ahead and it made $3.57 million in debuts at number 5. Now, it's really hard for original movies like Ron's Gone Wrong to go ahead and debut really well at the box office because of the fact that when you're fighting all these other established franchises like your Marvel franchises, DC, James Bond, and Dune, which is the story of Dune has been around since the 70s, so I would call that established. When you're competing against all those, it's really hard to crack any further than the top 4. So I am not surprised Ron's Gone Wrong debuted at number 5, but I'm also not surprised that it didn't go any higher than 5 because it's really hard to beat those other established movies. Plus, the general movie going audience doesn't really go see a lot of originals very often. That's just kind of the way it goes. I mean, we've seen that with The Last Duel, although I think the Last Duel had other problems aside from it being an original. You've got movies like Antlers, Last Night in Soho. All of those are originals. However, none of them really made the top 5 longer than a week because that's just what the general movie going audience does. They don't go see originals in theaters more than likely. So take that for what it's worth. I am super pumped for Ron's Gone Wrong. I should have looked up the production budget before filming this podcast to see what its budget was. Since it's an animated film, I'm guessing they still have got a little bit of groundwork to go before they actually start to make money. We'll have to see. So, friends, that'll do it for the box office results of the weekend. Any surprises from your end, whatever you think, you know where the comment section is. Let me know. Okay, so we got 2 other topics to touch upon today. We're going to get into the Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition and its launch. That's right, the Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition was announced by Rockstar not too long ago. And basically, it is a remaster, I want to be clear here, a remaster, not a remake, of Grand Theft Auto Vice City, of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and Grand Theft Auto 3. They were being remastered to go ahead and bring them to all different consoles, PS5, Xbox Series X, Xbox One, and PC, and I believe even the Switch too. So, long story short, this this definitive edition has not had a great launch. I've heard a ton of gamers are having problems across the board from Xbox Series X, PS5, PC, and I believe even the Switch too. So it hasn't been very good going for Rockstar, which is a big bummer because from an outsider's perspective, this is what the whole situation looks like to me. Rockstar released GTA 5 way back in 2013, so the game has been around for almost a decade. It has been one of the most successful, and I would argue the most successful video game of all time because it literally is one of the top selling games year over year over year over year, and it's been around for 8 years, which is insane. And I think this is in large part to one, it's a really good game. It's got really extensive multiplayer, and it's just become infinitely popular amongst a lot of people. So that probably is a reason why they've been selling, they've had one of the top selling games year over year, and it's really, really impressive. Now, the thing that's been kind of getting pressured to Rockstar from fans, from what I know, is the fact that fans are looking for something a little bit different now. They've had GTA 5 for almost a decade. They want GTA 6. They want a new experience. And I can honestly say I don't blame them. 8 years is a long time to go between games. So I think Rockstar wanted to throw fans a bone here by remastering some of the franchise's longest running and most iconic games in their history. San Andreas was an amazing game for its time. Vice City was really popular, although I never played it. GTA 3 was my first Grand Theft Auto game when I was younger, and I think they were hoping to satiate the fans in this regard. But however, I think that pressure maybe caused them to do a bit of a rush job and just caused them to push this out the door as fast as they could. I don't know that. I'm just speculating. However, we've seen this happen with a few other titles pretty recently. For example, CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk, they were pressured to get the thing out the door as quickly as they could. It caused probably a lot of crunch, a lot of stress, and the game didn't turn out very well. A lot of people had issues, especially on older gen consoles like Xbox One and PS4. I can't speak to current gen consoles because I haven't done my research in that regard, so don't quote me on that. But for PS4 and Xbox One, a lot of people had problems with Cyberpunk. And now history is repeating itself with GTA, the definitive edition. So, long story short, I hope things go better for Rockstar and that they maybe put out some patches to help fix some of these things. But not looking good for them in that regard. And I think this is only going to not only not satiate the fans' hunger for GTA 6, but make fans even hungrier because this just, it probably just felt like it's kind of like an appetizer rather than a full course meal. So, guys, have you played the GTA Definitive Edition? If so, what'd you think of it? You know, the comment section is, let me know. Okay, so the last big topic we're going to get into today is a new product from IGN called IGN Playlist. Now, what is IGN Playlist? So, from the research I've done about IGN Playlist and the emails I've gotten from IGN themselves, IGN is releasing a new product called Playlist, and this is what it's supposed to be able to do. One, you can track your game library and also your game time, so basically all the games that you've been playing. You can rate the games that you do play. So if you're playing a game like I've been playing, like Psychonauts 2, and you want to go ahead and rate it so other people can look at it and see, you can do that. You can create playlists of games that you can not only keep track for yourself, but you can follow other people's playlists as well, or you can share your playlists with others, make a public playlist so other people can get in on the fun. And then lastly, you can discover games recommended from IGN, their podcasts, or even your peers. Now, with all that functionality in a nutshell, overall, I'm actually really excited for this product because of the fact that it seems to be the first product of its kind in the world of video games, and it seems to blend elements of Spotify and Rotten Tomatoes. You've got the Rotten Tomatoes aspect of it where you can review the games that you've spent your time on and give your own assessment for. But then you got the social element with Spotify and sharing element with Spotify where you can share your playlists with other people. You can make recommendations, you can make public playlists, and you can just kind of talk about games, which is exactly what IGN is there for and there to promote. And another thing with that is the fact that you can track your game library and your game time. So by making your own playlist, you can see how much time you spent with each game. I know that's one of my funnest things to do with Spotify is the fact that at the year end, they give you a recap of what you've listened to, which is a ton of fun. And I hope this product does the same. And it sounds like that's exactly what it's going to do. Now, having said that, although I am super pumped for this product and I have signed up for early access, there's only one concern I have with it, and that's logging the playtime. I don't know how they're going to do that because if it were me, and I think that this would bode well for the app in general. I would recommend, if it's possible, connecting it to either your Xbox or PlayStation or your Nintendo app of whatever kind that you have, and then having it log the playtime into IGN playlist for you. I have a really hard time seeing consumers really wanting to go in and manually input how much time they've played each game every time they play it, because in a world where a lot of things are digital and you don't even have to put discs into a console anymore, or even movies into a DVD, Blu-ray, or 4K player, I can't really see people each time they play a game go ahead and logging their time on their own. That just seems very overkill, especially if you play games a lot and you play a lot of different games. Like if you play like 4 different games in the span of 5 hours, just contiguously, are you really going to remember how much time you spent playing each game? Probably not. And the fact that you have to go in manually and update it is probably a bit of a chore. Now, I'm speculating. I don't know for a fact if they're going to have you manually go in and enter in your game time. I'm just saying if they do have you manually go in and enter game time, probably not the best way to do it, but that's just my opinion on it. But friends, have you heard of IGN Playlist? Have you signed up for early access? If so, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Okay, so now, home stretch of the episode, we're going to get into my random thought of the week, which isn't really anything exciting. I couldn't think of any great topic this week, but I will share the news with you that I'm going to go get donuts this morning. I haven't had donuts since... It's been about a year since I've had donuts, but I'm going to go buy donuts this morning, and I'm going to eat the hell out of them, because that's all I've been thinking about for 2 weeks. So if you guys are out there and you're hungry and you want donuts, go get the donuts. That's my advice to you. Just go get the donuts. They're going to be totally worth it. To close out the episode, we're going to do some recommendations. I'll start off with the movie recommendations for the week. The movie recommendation I have this week actually comes from my parents. They recommend Love Hard on Netflix. It's supposed to be more of a lighthearted film about a woman who gets catfished. That's all I know about it, so I'm going to pass along that recommendation to you guys. It's on Netflix if you haven't seen it. Be wary though, Netflix movies are generally not looked at highly amongst audiences, so take that for what you will. The TV show I'll recommend, Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty is always a great choice if you want to have some laugh, guys. I think of it as a great holiday season sort of series for whatever reason, because they have a few holiday episodes in there, especially around Christmas, which is really funny. Check out Rick and Morty if you're looking for something different. It's on HBO, Hulu, and the like. And then lastly, video game recommendation. I just bought Resident Evil 8, and I've been dying to play it. That's actually coming up in my queue of games to play, which would be an IGN playlist if I had it currently. But I'm going to recommend the game that came before it, which is Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. I randomly played on Xbox Game Pass. You can still find it on there if I'm not mistaken. And the game is a awesome direction for the franchise to go, because it's first person, a lot more horror elements to it, and it's just wacky and way out there, guys. It is a ton of fun to play. It's about a guy named Ethan who goes searching for his missing girlfriend, who's been missing for, I believe, 2 or 3 years, and he comes upon this estate that looks abandoned, but there's things that just aren't quite right, so he's got to do some investigation in order to find his wife and get her out of there after she's been missing for so long. So play Resident Evil 7 Biohazard if you haven't. I think you will love it. Okay, friends, that's going to do it for this episode of Coffee and Kernels. Once again, thanks so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. Click right here if you like videos like this and you want to see more. I've been Bryson. Until next time, have a great day.